Well, welcome to the first episode of What About That? I'm here with David Jones, Chris Barden, and Aaron Fettleplace. We're going to be sitting down talking about different topics every week to go alongside our series at church right now. So if you're watching from church, great. If you're not, you can come on Wednesdays and hang out with us, learn with us at the same time. I'm kind of hosting this thing, but we're just going to have a casual conversation each week about a different topic. I'm going to be the devil's advocate today. We'll see if I'm doing it every week or if other people take it on. But
you like that, don't you?
I do. I'm really good at it.
Can you explain that to all Gen Alpha people
who don't know? As I've had to explain terminology.
No, go ahead then. If you're going to explain it, go ahead and explain it.
Devil's advocate. Basically, whatever you want, I'm going to do the exact opposite to antagonize you and poke the bear.
Ugh.
In other words, let's speak their language. For you to crash out.
Oh, Lord.
Crash out.
That's horrible.
Just be like my kids.
That.
that is Gen Alpha. That is the target.
It hurts. It hurts sometimes.
It does.
The conversations hurt.
Oh, man.
Well, today we're going to talk about the Bible. So we actually record this before you do your Wednesday night, so it's a little bit different. So we're pre-gaming the Bible study, which is fun.
So we get to know all the answers before Wednesday night?
Yeah.
Or I'll have to change my response.
So the whole concept today is we're going to be talking about why we trust the Bible. So the first thing I think people argue with the Bible is the Bible was copied by hand, so it must be corrupt. It can't be accurate, which, makes sense right off the top of your head. Think, handwriting something, you're going to mess it up. So what would be your argument back on something like that?
Yeah, I guess we can't trust any book that's ever been written if we can only have golden tablets that are written by God and drop down from the sky, right?
And put in the hat.
Mormons right away off the bat.
I think the problem is that people have this concept that God wrote the Bible and people didn't write the Bible.
Yeah.
And if people, maybe by their hand they wrote it, but their eyes were rolled back in their head and it's almost like, what is it called? Writing.
Oh, gosh.
It's that like...
Yeah.
It's like a spiritual writing where you go into a trance and then the spiritual realm is writing for you and you don't really have... And that people actually think that about the Bible. And so... That's not what we believe. We believe that the Bible was written by people, humans, who were fallible, but directed by God.
Is it automatic writing?
Auto writing.
Auto writing, yeah. That's what it was.
Yeah, and we don't believe in auto writing.
Right.
That's very...
Kind of a Ouija board-ish.
It's very new age.
Yeah.
And so when people say something like, well, the Bible was written by humans, like, well, of course it was. Who else would it be written by? But when you look at every other book that's ever been written, it's written by humans, but you put the Bible next to any other text, ancient text specifically, and you see there is so much more legitimacy to the scriptures than anything else that's ever been written. So that's, I guess, where I would start is that let's look at all of literature and figure out what the standards are. And the Bible blows everything else away.
When I think too, there's a difference between reading a book by, I don't know, name your favorite writer or author, and then you read the Bible, and it's every single time you could read something that's so similar to maybe the way someone else has said it, but the way that the Bible shares the history, yes, but all the scriptures that are so pointed to our lives now make it so personal, and it feels like it's alive and breathing, and I think the people who have that idea or concept of that the Bible isn't real, or it's written by man, they're just not diving into it the way that if you actually give yourself to it, you give yourself to the Word and give yourself to the Lord in His timing, He in His perfect will show us that this number one authority written book will always stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And that's what the beautiful thing. We could read the same scripture every single week and we get something new from it. It is alive and breathing. Like it's amazing. It's the only book that I've ever written that I can constantly receive something new from.
You wrote it?
Did I rate it? Did I
There's
say
the
that?
devil's advocate, baby. He's
read.
getting you on the flubs.
Did I write it?
Any
No.
book that I've ever written is what you said.
David Jones,
Read it.
author in 41.
He's trying to look like Jesus. Now he's saying he
Read
wrote the
any
Bible.
book I've ever read. Oh, gross.
So I let me ask this question because I've heard this one a lot. Is what about the idea that there's so many manuscripts we don't have the originals, and so how do we know that the copies aren't wrong because we don't have the original to look at?
Yeah. We don't have the originals of anything. So you look at the writings of Plato or Aristotle, and I think with Plato, there's like 9 ancient copies that have been found. And with Aristotle, it's more than that, but it's still in the like double digits. I think it's low double digits. When it comes to the New Testament alone, 24,000 copies, because it was such a passion that these manuscripts would be continually copied and distributed. And even that there's 24,000 that we have discovered, and they're all almost identical to each other.
Yeah.
And not only that, but that really throws out the argument that anything could have been manipulated, because how do you manipulate 24,000 different manuscripts from across all of the Mediterranean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, you can't.
Well, and then when we end up finding, I mean, even when we found like the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's variations, but the errors that they were able to spot were like grammatical, like in minor things. And so, like, we found from what we had were the oldest, now we have the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we've done examination after examination. But I think for a lot of people, like, I think modern people, like, think that it's just some random schlub that, gets a scroll and is like, oh, I'm just going to make a copy. Like, we forget that this was not just a profession, but like one of the highest in any society. So to be a scribe or to have access to like those types of documents and copy those down, you had people like looking over your shoulder, making sure that there are checks and balances per se to what you are copying, what you're doing. And it wasn't like, oh, John, you get to go out and do whatever the heck you want. And you know what, you didn't like how this was phrased, so you're going to add your own little, message version into it over here, and you're going to make it so it appeals to the modern masses during this time of translation. So none of that occurs. And so we can go back, we can see the different copies that we found at not just one location, but several different locations. Egypt, Ethiopia, you've got different Bibles. You've got the Ethiopian Bible. You've got all these different translations that literally come back to the same original Hebrew, Greek text.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and then you go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls, and 1974 is when those were found. Before that time, the oldest manuscript we had of the Old Testament, like Daniel, Isaiah, was from 1000 AD. And then this crazy situation happens where some kid throws a rock into a cave by the Dead Sea, hears a broken pot, goes in, finds these scrolls, finds Isaiah, Daniel, and these are written, they're traced back to 250 BC. So we're 1,250 years difference. So the question is, all right, are they different? Because you've got 1,250 years of translating scripture, and you would think, like a game of telephone, that they would be different. And like you said, they just aren't. With
Impacted by culture, impacted by the thoughts of the time, all that kind of stuff you'd think would bleed into it over time.
You would think. Yeah, man's agenda, all of those type of things, and not one doctrinal error is a translation of a word or a grammatical error or something like that would be found, but nothing that would alter the heart of the text at all.
I was just looked this up because I knew it was a really low number too, but that the entire history of Julius Caesar and the Gallic Wars, there's only 10 manuscripts that they trust, and they were written between 900 and 1,000 years after the original text was written.
Yep.
So there's not even anything close to that either, and there's only 10, and we hold that up as fact.
Historical truth.
Yeah. So, but I always found that really interesting, like the biggest part of Julius Caesar's life, and it's like, oh, we only have 10 copies of that, and it's 1,000 years after the fact.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, it just goes back into anything you get into the ancients. You can find history of Egypt, and like what we actually know about most of Egyptian history doesn't actually come from an Egyptian. It comes from a Greek historian named Herodotus. So like they never wrote down like how to mummify a body, except for Herodotus ends up writing down his process that he was able to observe. And so it was just like, well, at what kingdom did he observe this? And so you've got Old, Middle, and New Kingdom. And we trust that because it's the only document.
It's all we got.
Yeah, it's all we've got. And we've got 2,400. And so you can look at this Isaiah and that Isaiah. Oh, go over to this Isaiah, and then we get into it. Well, I think the big argument, though, for most modern people is not necessarily the original. It's the translations.
Yep.
And I think that's where people get really hung up on. So like, why is there an NIV? Why is there a King James? Everyone will argue to their deathbed that the King James version is the only version.
Right.
And if you're not reading this version, you are...
And no one's reading Greek or Hebrew right now, unless you literally live over there. So,
My students are full Hebrew.
All right, well, okay, but still,
they're not reading the New Testament.
Well, it wasn't written in Hebrew, so
Aramaic. Do they
Aramaic,
speak Aramaic?
No,
Just Hebrew.
Well, what was it? Which one was Aramaic?
Aramaic was.
Shout out to Chris's students.
Yeah,
some of
they're not listening.
Jesus.
This is the Jesus. So, for other context, if you don't know, I teach at an all boys Orthodox Jewish school, and I teach American history, world history, and government. And so I get to learn like crazy amounts. And then they also get to like go in. So if I'm teaching an Old Testament story, I actually go to the rabbis and I'm like, hey, I'm teaching on this. What are your core principles that you guys teach on? Wow. And their stuff has been like passed down. And so it's fascinating. I just don't know how they don't see Jesus the way that he's written.
Jesus?
But
going back to that, the seeing Jesus, the other thing about Jesus, at least in the Bible, is there's actually what's the word, when they literally lived at the same time, and they talked to eyewitnesses, and they were there. Like, what's his name, the Jewish historian that was fiercely anti-Christian, but confirms that Jesus did what he did. Called him like a charlatan and whatever, but like you can't argue that Jesus, because the guy was literally there, and not even like you're saying like, oh, this guy we trust was there and he was writing at this time. Like, these people were literally writing about Jesus, just a couple years after he died. So anyway, well, what about the translations? Since you jumped the gun, let's do it.
I don't even get the questions.
Chris, well, he does. No, let me clarify this for everybody at home. He got the questions 2 weeks ago, and I didn't look at them.
I like spur of the moment. I like being on my toes.
I think after this, no one's gonna get them. So, when it comes to translations, what is it that you say when someone says that? Because variation is that's variation, and so how can you trust that? And if you say variation doesn't matter, a lot of people are like, that's spin. That's just you're just throwing away this argument. Yeah. But what is the argument then about the translations? Because there are what? I mean, when you go online and you look, there's 100 that you can look up online in English.
The Bible app, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You want to touch on this one first, or?
Spin in again.
I'll spin it again. Well, I always say, for a lot of people are always trying to like find modern terms in ancient text. Right? So like the term that we've talked about with the youth is like abortion. Well, there's no term for abortion in there, but of course we have murder. And so like, well, the Bible doesn't talk about abortion, so therefore abortion isn't like spoken out against in the Bible. But of course we have the term murder. And of course you look at any modern day abortion process, where they stick something in, they literally tear a fetus limb by limb. Yeah. What are you doing? You're murdering the potential of a human being. And so, and then even we have like the context of when does life begin? And then you got verses where it says like, I knew you in your mother's womb. And so we get into context and we get into arguments, but I mean, whether it's variations of that, of, oh, whether this is ESV or what's that, I think most people just have the big argument over looking for their own terms, like homosexuality or abortion, and trying to find out, well, these are never written in there. And so then modern translations like, okay, it's not saying this, so we're going to like try and add in like, this is against homosexuality, or no, we've got to go into this verse in Matthew, or we, you know. And so you get into it, and when they break down in the history of them, I mean, everyone's got their preference. I mean, I love ESV personally. It's one of the things when I'm like doing my studies, for me, because it's, as far as I understand, one of the most accurate translations from the original text. But when I'm reading, I like the New King James Version. And I've got in a really great study Bible that does terminology out of a New King James Version. And then I know you like NIV, and then I have no idea.
No, I'm ESV for the same reasons, New King James for the same study reasons. You know, Aaron, you would probably be able to tell us a little bit more of the history, but I don't know if there's a right or wrong. I would just say
Translation?
that, yeah. Now, I think the thing is that we can see in the Bible is the Lord told us we could judge by the fruits of what happens in our lives, as well as the things that happen in and around us. And I think that there's a reality of like, let's just throw out a maybe conspiracy or a good debate of a translation like the Passion Translation. That one got removed from Bible Gateway, right? And they were very clear that they weren't going to carry that one anymore. But the Bible app still has it, you know, and they say, you know, that they went through all the Greek and all the Aramaic and all the Hebrew, and had, you know, scholars from all of them that spoke each language and believed very much that it was inspired by the Lord. But then, you know, a lot of people debated it. So I don't know if there's a fully right and wrong to the translations. I just know that a translation should be able to stand the test of time, like we said earlier. You know, and if it's not able to comparably, you know, have that same sense of like, I feel that God breathed this or inspired this as I read through it continually, you know, then it's different. And then you get into the whole amplified version, right? Or you get into the Message translations. Those are clearly paraphrases. They're very, very long, drawn out story ideas or concepts. Or it's not a translation of the Bible, but like The Chosen, the show, right? Those are clearly not full Bible stories. They're taking liberty to create characters. And so people can't use that as number one authority. So I think it would be helpful if you'd like to share on some of this, like what you believe is number one authority in a maybe translation and what we should look out for, but also what should we do when we want to test a translation.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at different translations, and all of the mainstream translations, none of them are going to change doctrine. And so that's the number one, is if there's something that changes, and I guess there have been some translations that have tried to take out gender. And so I guess that would be one that we would want to stay away from. But for the most part, you look at the ESV or the NIV, even like the King James Version. Like there were conspiracies that the king was trying to control, and so he was trying to take things out or put things in. And so he was manipulating scripture, but it's simply not true. When you look at the original, I mean, it's not like you can't go onto Blue Letter Bible or something like that and look at the Hebrew or the Greek or the Aramaic and figure out for yourself, which is what I would encourage everyone to do. Like, you use whatever translation you want. However, learn how to go into the Hebrew or the Greek and see what the words were. And then you can discover for yourself, because ultimately that's what it's going to come down to, is doing your own study and making sure that you're comfortable with what translation you're reading, and being inquisitive about it, saying, hey, I wonder what this word actually means and where it's used in other places in the scripture, and how would a first century Jew have looked at this word in the context of their worldview, because you have to take all that stuff into consideration, worldview and the word and how it was used during that time. Was
That's
it
right.
Context, baby.
Yeah, context is everything, and
Well,
that's what we always say.
I think that the challenge, and I think that the frustration I've had as somebody younger growing up in the church, is that people get so gun-ho or so stuck on something of a concept that, I don't know, homosexuality or whatever, you just name the biggest ones, and they'll get so isolated on the idea, and then they'll just keep it to themselves, or they'll start going on social media posting this or that. It's like, guys, the Lord wants us to live in community, and he wants us to bring these things to our elders or to our pastors and leaders and have accountability. Like, just talk about it, because of course that's where the enemy is going to breach. He's going to just try to divide and conquer who we are as sons and daughters of God. And then he's going to try to lie to us and think that we've found this brand new thing that no one else has ever thought about before.
Yeah.
And then what does he do? He takes us away from the responsibility that our pastors do have to then just go ask those questions. Like, can I just name one thing? Like, when the whole thing that happened about what just happened back in last year, it was a huge thing. I got so scared, and I texted you about it. Why am I blanking right now? Sorry, my brain is fried.
This is a great clip.
Dang it, this is frustrating me.
Listen next time.
Anyways, I had a huge epiphany, and I was super scared. I thought that something was gonna the rapture. Goodness
There you
gracious,
go.
it was. And I know it
Holy
sounds
cow.
so silly.
It took a long way to get
I know, and it sounds so silly
Let's talk about the rapture.
for another
I'm just saying
episode.
it took him that long to come up with the word rapture.
I'm sorry.
Amazing to me.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's not in the Bible, so it's hard to find.
Oh boy.
Hey!
All right, we'll get to
Next
that.
time.
We'll get to that for sure. I
bet you
know
it
we
said
will.
The Passion version.
But the thing was, I went through something, where I was very concerned. My wife and I sat down and we're like, well, what if it were to happen? And the first person I reached out to was Aaron, because I'm like, this is crazy, the way that I'm feeling about this right now. And let me just go get,
Walk it out.
let me
Yeah.
go get guidance, wisdom.
Yeah.
The Lord tells us to seek wisdom and counsel.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Anyway, sorry.
But no, that
Totally
leads
going
to
off
like
topic,
the great point, and that's the thing. Like, I deal with a lot of younger people, and so what we end up saying, of course, is like, seek it out. Like, you have all the authority to like go out. Like, there's apps, gotquestions.org, Bible.org. Like, I have a lot of my kids like download apps, and I'm like, hey, whenever you guys pose a question, because it's not just one author, and I go, there's a lot of opinions, so it's like, hey, we're talking about sin. You just type in like, what is sin, and you've got 15 different articles from different denominations, from different backgrounds, because the idea, of course, is to like kind of wrestle with the text and get different perspectives on it, because one version, if you just go to one and be like, all right, Aaron is the voice of God. And then the moment that Aaron translates one thing wrong, then we go, well, that God is a false God.
Right.
And I think for a lot of people, they hold the person preaching to an existential, here's your podium, and everything has to be perfect. And when they say something, do something, or there is corruption of some point inside of the church, then the whole glass ceiling breaks and shatters, and people are cut, literally. And then they start bleeding all over the place, and then they're like spreading the rumors, and but it's just their God was the pastor. Their God wasn't Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, and it's like the lack of like understanding of what the Bible actually says. Because literally, if you read the Bible and you actually understand it, and you actually take the time to study it and process it, everyone in the Bible sucks, except for Jesus. Like every single character outside of Jesus was terrible, just like the rest of us. So to be surprised that human beings in the church who aren't in the Bible, who aren't good enough to be in the Bible,
is also an argument why the Bible is legit, because no one would write a story where all the main characters suck, except for something that's true. You're just saying, hey, this is how it is.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
The other thing, I mean, so I love the idea of look things up for yourself. The problem is human nature is always that I'm going to find the answers I want.
Confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
yes.
so then you have an issue with, okay, I'm seeking out. You can get any answer you want.
You can find anything.
You can find anyone that will agree with what you want them to say.
Yep.
And so you do have to vet it
Yes.
and have people in your life that you see as authority.
Yep.
And it's so dangerous because you look at just the very first story of Adam and Eve and when they're falling into sin, and what happens? The enemy twists scripture, gets them to doubt the word of God, and then the enemy isolates them. And they could have gone to God and
Right.
said, hey,
Let's
What do
can
you
you
think?
clarify this for me?
this little talking thing
However,
over here.
They didn't, but that's human nature.
Right.
And that's what we do. And
They
that's the
proved it.
problem you see,
That's right.
like you were talking about, is that we isolate and we try and figure it out on our own
Right.
because we're all narcissists and our ego takes over. And we think, I can figure this out on my own, partially because we want the answer we want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we discover what we think God is, which ends up only being a reflection of ourselves, not of who God is.
Wow.
And then we become God.
Right.
And we're happy because God is us, but then it's not long lasting
It
because
doesn't mean anything.
we are us
Right.
and we are flawed and life doesn't end up working
That's
out.
good.
Like the analogy I like to use is like the truth is like a white line painted, and then you have black is where like a flat out lie, and then you just start pulling them towards each other, and you run into the grays,
Yeah.
right? And like what people will do, what you're talking about is like if you're taking a verse and you're running with a verse.
Yeah.
And you're not checking it against its own context.
Yeah.
You're not checking it against the context of the whole Bible.
Yeah.
Because things happen in a situation that might be one thing, but in another situation it's completely different. Like when Paul says women shouldn't speak in the church, then he's also talking about the people who are women who are speaking in the church,
Who are prophesying, how they
he's-
should prophesy.
and he's saying listen to them, and he's like saying say hi to them. Like he's not reprimanding them. So like how can it be that the white line is women shouldn't speak in church when that's not the Bible, that's not all those things altogether.
Right.
And so I think if you are looking to fool yourself, you can take, and one of the things I hate the most, and I love it because you can find things quickly,
Yeah.
but one of the things I hate the most when it comes to like the Christian world as a whole is that we created verses.
Yeah.
Because none of these things were written with verses in mind.
Right.
So you couldn't take a verse out of context because you couldn't take it out of context because there was no way to break it up like that. So, if you're taking, if you're looking to fool yourself, you're looking to fool yourself.
Yeah.
And I think our world today, it's very easy. That's what everyone does. So it's weird to stop and go, wait a second.
Yeah.
But that's what we're called to do.
It's good.
So,
That was not very devil's advocate-y.
I know. Here we go.
He's not doing a good job.
What about the differences between the Gospels? They're all different, so how can I trust any of them? They're all four different versions. They have different things. One has one thing, one has another. They don't even cover all the same stuff. So how can you say that those are all accurate?
I think it's like a beautiful representation. Like it goes back to the first thing we talked about, like copying. Well, if you've ever cheated on a test before, you're looking for the only answer.
Right.
And so you take the original, which was the Gospel of Mark, and you would have expected that if they were all just wanting to say the same thing and perpetuate it, they would have just copied everything that Mark had written down and verbatim. But we don't get that.
Right.
We get literally different lenses.
Yeah.
From different eyewitnesses, and the way that you perceive something, and anyone who's ever interrogating, a crime scene or anything like that, is that your perspective from this angle is going to be completely different from the perspective of this angle, because you might have heard something in a private conversation before someone went out and spoke, that you being in the audience or you like delivering the food, I always say the 4,000, 5,000. It's a completely different perspective. And, what context do they have in that regard? I mean, it's Mark, right? Where he's like the naked boy or whatever it is. Isn't there one like, and then
I mean, not
he's
in
running
those
away,
words, but maybe in your translation.
Yeah. No, but there was one. But then there was another, like, I always say like the joke in John is like, and then they ran to the tomb and then
Peter.
and so it's just like, It just they put it a friendly
John,
jab.
John just loves.
John's
to just
amazing.
he just pokes at Peter every chance he gets.
But
Highly competitive.
exactly.
But the one who he loved.
Yeah,
He loved the most.
faster.
I was faster than Peter, just so everyone knows.
I'm not gonna say my
Aaron-
name because I want to
Aaron
be
loves using that
pompous
one
about
in
it.
his
but-
scriptures.
It's so great.
I would also just say too, like again, it goes back to the point of like, why do people argue it? And it's because again, they're trying to seek out something that's wrong about it, and then they try to prove the point that it's not right,
Right.
and they're right, and that it's just now just proving the point that the Bible contradicts itself or this or that. And the reality is, all of those things are right about what Chris just said. And it's kind of like the dress that came out years ago, and it was like, is it blue or is it gold? Or is it,
yeah.
And it was
Definitely
like
blue.
it was both.
It was gold.
Because your eyes saw it different, and everybody's eyes were made by the Lord, and He made you to see it that way. And so I think it's a beautiful thing when Pastor Aaron will start speaking about different things frequently from the platform, and he'll go, is it this or that? And he'll say yes, because it's a reality of, and I'm saying the example's bad here because I don't have one to share, but like there's so many times when it is both and, like so many times, and in all the Gospels, it just only allows you to fully see the full picture by looking at them all.
Well, and even they say, I don't know, I can't remember which gospel says it, but it's like if everything that Jesus did was written down, it would take up all the space, and all the things, and all the stuff.
It kind of bums me out. I'm like, man, I want to know more.
Well, and it's funny because like I think another reason why this is an argument is that we're used to the world we live in where things are, you have something on video, like pick it didn't happen, that kind of a culture. But if anything, the world we live in the last 2 months has shown how much perspective and different point of views change the story, even when you have it on film.
Right.
Like you can have this whole thing like, oh my gosh, and then you look the other way, you're like, oh, that person's an idiot.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
That's why that happened.
Yeah. And it's just so even our modern sensibility of like precision, if this is what it is and this is what it is like actually not true. Like we also all have driven home and not known how we got there because our brain just took over.
Well, and I also think too that
we don't all
there's
have
scripture
Teslas like David, but we all can drive home without even knowing.
Oh, okay. There are scriptures that point to that God is mysterious in all of His ways, and that He wants us to seek Him out to learn more. And so, of course, He's going to just sprinkle mystery all throughout the scriptures for us to have a relationship with Him. You've talked several times about your marriage. It's like if you don't get to know your wife, then you won't actually know the things that she wants or she doesn't want. It's the same with all of us. We're all married in this room. If we don't actually have that level of like desire to know each other, then we won't know the deep inner parts of our hearts, each other, and won't have that true intimacy that we both desire. And that's really with the Lord. I think that there are some things that He's just kind of like little protective of, to not share of us, to share yet, so that we actually want to pursue Him, He wants the pursuit.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Gospels are a beautiful depiction of different people having different views. I mean, like Chris said, if it was a conspiracy, they'd all say the exact same thing. And because they don't, it shows that this is a legitimate first person eyewitness view of what happened.
It's true.
And so was the car blue or was it green? I mean, in my perception it was blue, but Chris said it was green because we both saw it, but based off of what we remember, it doesn't mean that there wasn't a car. A car was there.
Right.
It's just these details, and I think we do see that in all the Gospels. They don't change the big picture of any of it. It's just the details are different, and that would make sense for any. Again, we go back to the first question: why do we believe in the Bible if it's written by humans? Well, because God uses humans. Like that's the reason we're on this earth. Does He need us? No, but He uses us. And do we know why? No, we don't. Except for that, we know that God is love, and He has chosen in His infinite wisdom to use us to carry out what he wants in this world.
Right.
Like, from the very beginning, we are his image bearers.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we are his image bearers, it was our job to go into all the world. Adam and Eve were called to multiply and fill the earth. Did he need Adam and Eve to multiply and fill the earth? No, he could have made every single person he wanted to.
Yeah.
Yet he uses us, and he did that with the scriptures, with
Yeah.
the gospels, and we have to thank him for that, because he didn't have to do it.
Yeah. So I have a lot more questions, but we've gone, I think, a good amount of time right now. Maybe we do another one on this topic
Yeah.
with the rest of the questions I have, because I wanted to get into like the Council of Nicaea, and I wanted to get in a couple of those things, but which would be fun. But I think just to end this section today, the people that are listening, people that are church that are listening online, what's the core of this when you're talking to someone who's saying these things? What is the what should we not do? Maybe what should we do? What should we not do when it comes to these discussions with people?
I don't think you dismiss them.
Right.
When someone has questions about the Bible, usually it's because they are fearful of what the Bible says, and they don't want the Bible to be an authority in their lives. And so if you can identify that, understand that there is something deeper than them just thinking the Bible might not be true or legitimate, then you can deal with almost the spirit behind it.
Yeah.
The fear, the uncertainty behind it, because there's definitely something else there. They're wanting to either justify something they know is wrong in their own heart, and so they're trying to illegitimize the scriptures to get to that place, or they are just afraid of what's going to happen, control what authority has done in their past. And I think if you can address those questions and help them to navigate through their fears and their own baggage, then this almost becomes a non-issue, because when you look at this text compared to any other, there's no comparison.
Yeah, and I would just add as well, we won't be able to take anyone to a place of where we want to see them in freedom and experiencing the goodness of what these moments of reading through the Word of God and seeing these stories and testimonies throughout our life of faith, if we're not taking the time to spend time with the Lord, And so I would just say, for anyone who is concerned about these questions that are coming up a lot, maybe around them or even internally, go back to the Word and read more. Allow the Lord to allow yourself to be invited into God's presence and spend time with him intimately with him each day. And then also, again, what we said earlier, have accountability. Have someone that you, whether it's an elder in your church or a pastor or leader, that you can run these questions by. Whether it's a quick text or a phone call, or it's not good for you to jump online and start searching a bunch of things, especially on YouTube, because then it will just take you down these algorithmic rabbit holes that will really be painful. It will only bring up the things that you ultimately didn't want, but you did want in your flesh, right? 100%. And it's damaging, and sometimes it can really hurt in a way that you ultimately didn't see coming. And I do think that's why the Lord protects us the way he does and guards us. And we have great leaders here at Jesus Church that we would love to talk with you. So, I would definitely be careful. I think, Chris?
Oh, I just say it goes back to Adam and Eve. It's the deception. Did God really say? And that's the one thing that, I think the devil is always trying to work in people's hearts, is that element of deception is the root of pretty much every single sin. And so they don't want the word to say what it says, because it interferes with some of the sin life that, like, whether or not they enjoy. And so, they're going back to what you said. They've got something that they're asking a question, and that question is really about something else. And so the question that they're often asking you has to do with something else. A lot of the times, famous saying is, this is really about that. And so they're asking a question, but again, it goes into it. And I've heard story after story, why are people asking this? Why are people asking that? And it was like, you can, apologetics all day long, but it's until you get the
Yeah.
heart of the individual.
That's really true. I don't think ultimately any of us will ever be able to convince somebody
Yeah.
that the Bible is God's inspired
No.
book. They have to come to that
That's right.
in
Conclusion.
self-discovery.
Yeah.
We can help them.
Can encourage. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go
and
read.
we can maybe eliminate some of the questions.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you have to have that personal experience with the Lord.
Yeah.
I can't say how many times I've been in conversation with someone that's like against it, like fighting with me, like kind of like wanting to pick a fight, and I'm just like, you haven't read it.
Yeah.
You haven't read it.
Well,
Like you're
yeah.
going off of
Spend
what
time.
someone else is saying.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
like I go and read all 4 Gospels and come back to me and tell me that you can't see the story flesh out in all
Yeah.
4 stories.
Yeah.
Like tell me that. Like you can't. So just go do it.
Yep.
If you care enough to know the truth instead
Yeah.
of just wanting to satisfy your own flesh,
Mm-hmm.
then go read it, and then we can talk about
Yeah.
it. Because that most of the time that's what it is.
Most
They
of
have
the time.
this ignorance. It's what you were talking about. Like they want to see in the mirror dimly. They don't want to see what they want. What it shows.
Yeah,
So-
you'll get the professor, the one-off who really has read it, but even them, they haven't read it in context. They haven't read it all the way through. They're just reading it to find the
Answer
holes,
they're
yeah.
looking for. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. Again, you can always find what you're looking for,
Exactly.
especially nowadays.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
And that's the challenge that we're now seeing is, so many more religions. I can't remember how many it is, but there's so many more, now than ever before. And, people will be able to find any message they're looking for online from a pastor. Oh, I want to know about giving on YouTube, and they'll find it, right? Oh, I want to know about gays, or homosexuality.
Well,
like,
they'll search is why is giving wrong?
Right.
Right?
No, yeah,
Not,
you're right.
I want to know about giving.
No, that's
It's
true.
why is what I don't want to be right
Yeah.
wrong.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you guys
Yeah.
for all your wisdom and folly and all the things. So we'll do this again next week. We're going to do it for at least the next 12, right?
Yeah.
We have a 12-part series that you're doing, so we're going to at least follow that, and then maybe we'll just keep going. So
Cool.
this is
It's
fun.
fun.
So.
Let's go.
I love it.
All right,
Love
see
it.
you guys next week. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.